I know, it's a scalding hot take, but stick with me, I'll make it make sense. People were climbing over railings. This is not a ball game. So when you drink too much at a comedy show, you run the risk of turning into an obnoxious asshole. Or as we comedians like to call them, hecklers. You don't see people in Hamilton heckling. Hi, I'm Ashley. Welcome to my channel. I went to Josh Johnson's show in Portland. If you're not familiar with Josh Johnson's comedy, please go check out his YouTube channel. He is, in my opinion, the most prolific comedian of our time and quite brilliant. Before I get into all that, I want to say that I know that I am very biased on this topic because A, I'm a comedian, B, I don't drink alcohol, and C, I love Josh Johnson, and I was looking forward to this show for months. And I have to say, I was a bit disappointed. Not in Josh's performance itself, although I think alcohol indirectly affected his performance. I was more disappointed in the audience itself, and more specifically, in the venue. Looking at you, State Theater. Now, much of my disappointment in this show can be traced back to alcohol.
Alcohol?
What if we banned alcohol from stand-up comedy shows? Would people stop going? Would it enhance the experience? Would the venue and therefore the comedians lose money?
You were saying?
So to give you a quick recap of the show, like I said, I was very excited to see this show. I bought the tickets months and months in advance. A friend of mine had to actually stand in line outside the theater because these tickets went so fast. I was pumped, you know? And I get there, I notice the audience is moving around a lot, but you know, the show hasn't even started yet. The host hasn't even come on. You know, I was like, all right, this seems cool. So the host gets on, you know, and he's got a lot of energy, as you want in a host. The host needs to really get the audience awake and let them know, like, hey, you're at a comedy show, you're here to laugh. And he told, you know, some pretty good jokes, and the audience was getting warmed up, and then the opener came on, and he told some really good jokes. I'd never heard his stand-up before. I'd never heard of this comedian before, so I was thrilled to be introduced to a new comedian. So during the middle of his set, I don't even remember what the joke was exactly, but someone in the audience just, and this person was sitting, so we were kind of high up in the balcony, and then there was sort of like a section below us, and then there was the main floor section. And I believe the people in the floor section were all standing because assigned seats are not typically a thing in this theater, and I'll get back to that in a minute. The comedian was telling this joke, and this person who was on our side of the theater, now I'm getting heckled.
Just how drunk are you?
I think I'm gonna have to move to a different spot. I think we've made it past my heckler here in the woods. So anyway, this woman, I can't remember what he was saying, but she just kept responding to him, and she just kept saying no. She was like, no, 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 no. And finally, the guy says, who over here is just saying no? And then he immediately shut it down by coming up with what I can only assume was an off-the-cuff joke. He said, look, I know you people watch a lot of TikTok and YouTube, but that's not how this works. And I probably butchered it a little bit, but it was funny, and the audience laughed. I mean, I think he got an applause break. If you're not familiar with comedy terms, an applause break is exactly what it sounds like.
Okay, now cue the music and that star thing.
Now, we found out after the show that security eventually did escort this woman out because apparently she was so drunk that she was falling asleep in her seat.
I'm not drunk. Wait, I am drunk.
But you know, as a professional, he handled it well. He didn't let her ruin his set. He didn't let her get away with it. He maintained it with crowd work. But this wasn't the only thing that annoyed me. And I was joking around my friend who lives in Portland. Well, she was the one who informed me that there's normally not assigned seating. So people are used to going to the State Theater to see music or shows that you don't necessarily need an assigned seat and you can just sort of stand. But that's not a comedy show, at least in my opinion. So when Josh got on there, I was already fairly annoyed with the audience.
Stupid chicken!
I was trying to not let them ruin my experience, okay? But
Stupid drunk!
probably because of the alcohol, people had to keep getting up to go to the bathroom. And my friend kept saying, oh, well, you know, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they got an issue. No, it wasn't just the getting up and down. It was the way in which they got up and down. In fact, there was a security guard standing next to, so we were in this section and there was an opening right next to us that led into, you know, the hallway, or what do you call that? The mezzanine? I should probably know these terms. Here's where the bar and the bathrooms and all of that are. And so we could hear people talking through that opening. And I was so annoyed, I almost got up to tell the security guard who was standing near the entrance, who also didn't say a damn thing the whole time. So my friend got up to go to the bathroom and whispered something to the security guard. And then when she came back, all the talking had stopped. And I was very curious. I'm like, what? So what's up? She's like, turns out it was the bartenders.
Stupid drunk!
And again, my friend was defending them like, well, you know, they're not used to working at a comedy show.
Wait, was everybody drunk?
It is the venue's responsibility to make sure that the employees are trained to manage the crowd for whatever event is happening. Like, know who's on stage, know your audience, your theater.
Jazz hands!
By the time Josh got on, I was really trying to separate that whole experience that I had with the audience from my experience watching Josh. And I couldn't do it. You know why? Because I think, and again, I'm probably biased because I'm a comedian, and I think maybe I'm projecting my own stuff onto Josh, but, you know, if Josh is watching this, which I highly doubt, but if he is, I could be completely wrong, dude. You know, you might say, no, it was pretty chill. I had a good set, I thought. You know, that's a bad Josh impression. You know, he may have a completely different view than I did. But from my perspective, where I sat, as someone who has been on stage, probably not as much as Josh has, but quite a few times, I know what it's like to rush through your set because you're so annoyed or you're just not there. You're just not in it because the audience is so distracting. And I think that's what happened to Josh. So again, this is not a criticism of Josh's set. I don't think I don't think that heckler or the audience in general really threw Josh. I do think his set was a little rushed because the thing that I really love about Josh, and I think that most people who love him will say the same thing, he is a phenomenal storyteller. And what makes his jokes so powerful is his ability to sort of lead you on this undulating path, sort of like crescendos, and then you get to the punchline, and it's just, well, it's remarkable. You know, it's what makes him so popular and why he has, I don't know how many subscribers he has, but, you know, and the fact that he comes up with new material every single week. You know, it'd be one thing if, like, you know, you go on tour and you have your set, or maybe you have two different versions of that set. I don't know. I've never been on tour, so, but I'm assuming I know enough about comedy and I've seen enough comedians to know that, you know, you have your set that you do for that tour. Not Josh. No, this man comes up with new material, a brand new set, 45 minutes at least, of all new material every single week. And that is just, that just blows my mind, honestly, because that's a prolific writer right there. And as a writer myself, it's impressive, okay? Just put it that way. It's very impressive. So it'd be one thing if you already had like the set that you do, you know, every time you go to a new place, and, you know, the audience kind of, you know, you worked on it, you practiced, but, you know, it's your set. Like, you know it. It's okay. You'll do that set next week. Well, not Josh. No, he worked on that specific set for that night. I could be wrong because I haven't been to all of his shows. That's the only show I've been to so far. But I have watched all of his weekly YouTube specials, and every single one is an entirely new set of material. So, do I think Josh let alcohol ruin his set? No, I don't. Because he is a professional. But at least from where I sat, it seemed like he was just kind of ready to be done. And that's okay. You know, again, I didn't let it ruin my experience. Given the story of the heckler there, I guess one could argue that hecklers are kind of a necessary evil. But I think it's more about looking at it like hecklers are a part of the stand-up comedy economy. And of course, every comedian loves the opportunity to shut down a heckler, but would the show go much smoother without a heckler? Hell yes, it would. Now, do I think that banning alcohol from comedy shows will eliminate heckling? No. Heckler's gonna heckle. But if you don't fuel the heckler with heckle juice, aka alcohol, the experience will be a lot less annoying, I think. That said, are venues obligated to ensure a good show? Yes, absolutely. And the State Theater failed to do so, in my opinion. Now, I get that it is difficult to manage a large crowd. You can't keep people from talking. Of course, people need to go to the bathroom. You know, human things. But at the same time, you can do small things to help out. Like, for instance, at the beginning of the show, someone from the theater, an employee, somebody who's good at talking. You work at a theater, somebody's got to be good at talking. Get up on the stage, grab the microphone and say, hey, welcome to the State Theater. We're so glad you're here, yada, yada, yada. If you could please be mindful of the audience members around you and the comedians, please minimize side conversations and noise in the hallways when you go to the restroom. Easy peasy. I believe that would have eliminated, I would say, half of the obnoxiousness of the show. Of the audience from the show. And I mean, I kept joking with my friend. I'm like, what are you guys, heathens up here in Portland? But seriously, people were climbing over railings. This is not a ball game, okay? Take your ball game mentality to the ball game.
Somebody jump on sides, damn!
I mean, the employees were talking, the bartenders. And again, I know my friend was like, well, they're not used to this kind of show. That doesn't matter. Train your employees to behave according to whoever's on stage and maintain the audience noise level for that show. You don't see people in Hamilton heckling or being loud drunks, or I don't know, maybe you do. I've never seen Hamilton because I hate musicals. I guess that leads me to the final point here, or final question. Would banning alcohol from comedy shows enhance the experience? Maybe. Would it work? I don't know, but I think there are other options. I think that you could hand out drink tickets. You know, everybody gets one drink. Because again, if you can't go an hour and a half without drinking alcohol,
Don't say high-functioning alcoholism.
you might have a drinking problem. And I'm not joking about that because I did drink, I did have a problem, and I stopped drinking. And I would never, even when I was drinking, heckle a comedian. But that's me. So you could limit the audience to one drink. Or most comedians, when they go to a show in a city, there's more than one night of performances. So usually there's at least 2 nights. You could do one night of no alcohol. Make the show enjoyable for all the people who don't drink. Because I guarantee you, since those shows sold out so quickly, if they added an extra no alcohol night, I don't care if there's no alcohol, that would still sell out. Probably faster than the regular tickets, to be honest with you. Or you could stop drunks from coming in the first place. Don't let anyone come in who smells like a distillery or who can't walk or see straight. I mean, it's pretty clear when someone's drunk, especially if you work at a venue like the State Theater in Portland. You probably know how to recognize someone who's had a little too much.
Drunk! Drunk!
So don't let those people in. And if you do drink alcohol and you're sitting here thinking, this lady's crazy, ain't no way people are still going to go to a comedy show if there's no alcohol served. Well, I say let's put that to the test. Ban alcohol from at least one of the comedy show nights, and let's see what happens. I'd be happier, that's for sure. And I know a lot of other of my friends who don't drink would also pay money to go to a no alcohol comedy show. So would you pay money to go to a no alcohol comedy show? Do you think alcohol enhances the show or makes it not so enjoyable for the people around you who are not drinking?
Well, for one thing, I'm pretty drunk.
Now, I know the first argument against banning alcohol from comedy shows is, well, it acts as a natural lubricant. Well, I'm here to say alcohol makes you stupid, not lubricated. In fact, I did a little research just to give you some facts according to the National Institute of Health. First of all, alcohol interferes with the prefrontal cortex, which is your brain's decision-making center. So when alcohol interferes with that, that leads to reduced inhibitions, increased impulsivity. And not only that, I just learned something today. It can affect temporarily your hearing. So have you ever noticed how drunks are really loud and obnoxious? Well, that's probably because they can't hear themselves. So when you drink too much at a comedy show, you run the risk of turning into an obnoxious asshole. Or as we comedians like to call them, hecklers. So now you might be saying, yeah, well, don't you want the audience warmed up? And sure, every comedian wants the audience warmed up, loose, and laughing a lot. That's why we do this, after all, for the laughs. And that's the only comic's barometer for how well the set is going. So, in a sense, laughter and clapping are to comedy as comments and likes are to YouTube videos. So that's really how you know the set's going well. So of course you want the audience ready to go. And that's why comedians like Josh have a host and an opener. They want to make sure the crowd is ready for the main event. So in other words, you can really tell how well your set is going by the audience reaction. Are they laughing? Are they engaged versus are they getting up to go to the bathroom a lot or having loud side conversations? So yeah, you want the audience engaged and in a good mood. But not once in all of my years of comedy have I ever got on stage and thought, you know, I wonder if this audience is drunk enough to laugh. Because that is my job as a comedian. That's not the alcohol's job. If you're a comic and you have to rely on a drunk audience to get laughs, you're not a good comedian. And as an audience member, if you need alcohol to laugh at a joke, maybe comedy's just not your thing. Or if you can't go an hour and a half without a drink, maybe you should think about how much you're drinking.
I'm not drunk. Wait, I am drunk.
I don't think the camera's gonna do it justice, but I was gonna try to get the sun through these pines, because this is part of a series called Between the Pines. Anyway, Josh, if you are still watching, if you're watching at all, but if you're still watching, I just want to say this quickly before I get out of here, because my battery's about to die. So if Josh is watching, I hope you know that this, hope it's okay that I called you dude. I mean, it's really no disrespect. I call my close male friends dude. I'm not saying we're close, but you know, just, I think that I hope you know this had nothing to do with your set in particular. I still wouldn't trade that experience for anything. I'm just giving commentary on, you know, how I think that we can improve comedy for everyone, because as a lover of comedy and someone who doesn't drink, I think you could actually make money off of an extra night of alcohol-free shows. I don't know, maybe it's been done. I just want to say I still thoroughly enjoyed your set and seeing you live. I didn't get to meet you. That's a different video for a different time. I just want to say that, yeah, I mean, obviously, if you have been watching up until this point, I really hope you understand that I have so much respect for you. The fact that you come up with new material every single week, it just amazes me and inspires me. And who knows, I might get back up on stage. Probably not, but you, sir, your comedy is solid gold. That's the best way to describe Josh Johnson's comedy. Maybe someone said it before. I hope I'm not stealing someone's gold. All right, well, everyone, hope you've enjoyed this, whatever this has been, and whatever this will become. It is what it is now. So, Until next time, stay unleashed and stay sober. Maybe just try it for a week. See how you feel. I don't know, or not. I'm gonna go have a creamy before the summer is completely over. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing. Lastly, let me know what your thoughts are. I'm very curious to know if people really think that no one would go to a comedy show where alcohol's not served.